Hi, this is Uncle Matt's D&D Studio. I'm Matt Finch. Before we go on with this topic, I'd just like to remind you, please subscribe to the channel if you're interested in old school gaming. You'll get notifications of the videos as they come out. And I want to move on to the topic, which is gatekeeping. There are a lot of people who are concerned that Old School Gamer Radio, if it becomes an umbrella site for the OSR in general, that it might also serve as negative gatekeeping. And I want to talk briefly about gatekeeping in general in the OSR and then get back to that question of the effect that I think Old School Gamer Radio would have on the overall community. The first thing to point out is that the Old School Renaissance really began, and in fact, this is before the Old School Renaissance really started. We had some forums, mostly Dragon's Foot, a couple of others, and that in those forums we had a community of people coming in, a large number of people, to talk about the general topic areas of the out-of-print games, the early versions of Dungeons and Dragons. And we realized that although we had a community of people, we didn't really know why. People had opinions all across the spectrum on this, and so naturally many of the people began asking themselves, well, what is it that brings all of these people together? What are the parameters of it? Where are the divisions within it? And I am going to talk a little bit about the divisions in another video, but I want to talk for a moment about the unifying principle that's there. And the answer is that there's not really a unifying principle. What you have is something that is a lot more like a syndrome. If you have various interest groups that crisscross and overlap with each other, what you end up with is that there are all of these different opinion groups that are out there. And those groups and opinions tend to cluster together into what I would call these factions. And again, I'll go into what I think those factions are in a later video. But the point being, the OSR is not some monolithic entity where everybody shares the same opinions. And because of that, we've got the danger that Old School Gamer Radio might adhere to one or the other of those particular clusters and be leaving out many of the others that are involved there, being exclusionary. And so I think a lot of people realize that I've got a broad view of the OSR, relatively inclusive, certainly compared to a lot of the people that are in it as well. But rather than just relying on that, I want to point out a couple of structural factors that we've built in to the way that we want to organize Old School Gamer Radio that create speed bumps against my unknowingly turning myself into a gatekeeper. And that is that we've pretty much decided on the idea that the way we're going to present sites on Old School Gamer Radio is basically going to be one person, one link. In other words, if you are a small publisher that doesn't have your own website, you'll have one link to your top page, possibly on one bookshelf, and that would be your one link. We're not going to be linking to different products. On Tankar's Tavern, we're going to have the one link to Tankar's Tavern. It's not going to be lists to various blogs that are in there. So that way, you're going to have a situation in which the do-it-yourself publishers and writers and commentators are going to have equal footing with the much larger companies and the much larger blogs and websites that are out there. That's a structural way of ensuring that we're giving equal time to the people who may be less visible out in the community. And that's actually one of my main goals that's out there, is to bring up the visibility of people who are not, as a result of the way social media works, bringing in as many people to see their places as they really ought to be bringing in, and that at least under our older structures of communication, that they would have those people coming to look, but now they don't because of the way that social media has been organized in the years since the beginning of the OSR. Now, that again is one of the principles, simply the issue that we want. We do really have two large groups in the OSR: the people who are DIY folks with a sort of a punk ethos of, you know, this is my idea. It's not necessarily going to be with the high production values, because I'm not going out there based on production values. I'm going out there based on my creativity and my idea. And then on the other hand, you've got publishers who do focus on high production values, because obviously there are a lot of people who want to see things with higher production values than, for example, the lighting that I've got in this video. I suppose it's also worth mentioning that addresses the website as an index. It doesn't address the content that I'm going to be producing. And obviously, being one person, the stuff that I produce as content is going to be a little bit biased in terms of whatever my preferences are, and in many ways about who it is that I'm talking to, and you know, that is going to be affected partly just by whose phone number do I have that I can call up and say, hey, let's do a video. The as a strategic matter, I'm actually going to do that deliberately right at the very beginning of the website, because in order to get the critical mass of people that we want, the smart way to do that is still to talk to the people who already have the built-in followings, because then that will draw people to the site, help us hit our critical mass as they realize what else is out there. And then after that sort of initial strategic period of time, that's when I'm going to start branching out and trying to bring in the folks who do the DIY stuff, the people who have an excellent blog that doesn't have a large viewership, and so on and so forth. So that is the tactical or strategic approach that I'm going to take. So I do think you're going to see me bringing in a lot of people who have the large followings for these videos at the very outset, and then we're going to branch out and do more. So hopefully that will allay the concerns that people have about Old School Gamer Radio becoming a gateway of some kind, or me becoming a gatekeeper of some kind. We're trying to structurally organize it so that won't happen. I'm somebody who is very interested in the broader scope of the OSR rather than in any of the particular opinion clusters or factions that are out there in the OSR. And so with that said, this is kind of a long video for the purpose that I wanted to do for it, since we're already at the 7-minute point. So that's where I will cut it off, and I will say whatever type of D&D that it is you play, imagine the hell out of it.